The numbers never lied. That was the first thing my grandfather taught me when I was 7 years old, sitting at his kitchen table in Mississauga while he showed me how to balance a check ledger by hand. People lie, he said. Circumstances lie. But if you follow the numbers all the way to the end, they will always tell you the truth. I thought about that lesson the moment my mother slid the envelope across the dining room table and said, "Sign it over to your brother. Tonight." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I picked up my fork and finished the last bite of my roast chicken, and I thought, there is a discrepancy in this ledger. And I am going to find it. My name is not important. What is important is that I am 31 years old. I work as a forensic accountant at a mid-size firm in downtown Toronto, and 3 weeks before this story begins, my grandfather passed away in his sleep at 84 years old. In the same Mississauga bungalow where he had taught me everything I know about numbers. He left me $240,000. Not my mother, not my father, not my brother Derek, who was 34, and had not held a steady job in 6 years. Not the house, not the RRSP, not the savings bonds he had accumulated over 40 years of driving a city bus and living below his means. Me. The will was airtight. My grandfather had used a notary in Oakville, a woman named Patricia, who had been handling his affairs for over a decade. The estate lawyer confirmed the transfer within 2 weeks of probate clearing. The funds were sitting in a registered account in my name, attached to my SIN, and the only person who could touch them was me. I know this because I read every single document myself. Twice. What I did not know, what I had not yet uncovered, was that my mother had known about the inheritance for almost 4 months before my grandfather died, that she had already made plans for it, that the envelope she slid across the table that evening contained a form she had downloaded from a legal template website, something she found with a Google search, something that she genuinely believed would hold up in court. I also did not know that my brother Derek owed $47,000 to a man whose name I will not repeat here, a debt accumulated through a combination of sports betting, a failed cryptocurrency scheme, and 2 personal loans he had taken and never repaid. I did not know that my mother had co-signed one of those loans, that her name was on the hook for $12,000 if Derek defaulted, that she had already received 2 phone calls she described to my father, behind a closed bedroom door, as threatening. I know all of this now. I know it because when you are a forensic accountant and someone hands you an envelope and tells you to sign something, the first thing you do is not sign it. The first thing you do is read. My father was in the living room during this conversation. I want to be specific about that. He was watching a hockey game, the Leafs, inevitably losing, and he did not come to the table. He did not say my name. He did not tell my mother to stop. He had always been a man who believed that staying out of things was the same as being innocent of them. My brother Derek was not home that evening. He was, my mother explained, going through a very difficult time. He needs this more than you do, she said. She had her hands flat on the table, the way she used to when she was delivering a punishment when I was a child. A position of authority, a position that said, "This has already been decided. You have your job. You have your salary. Derek has nothing." Derek has nothing, I repeated, because Derek has spent the last 6 years making choices. That is not a kind thing to say about your brother. It's an accurate thing. She pushed the envelope closer. Your grandfather would have wanted the family taken care of. Grandfather specifically chose not to leave this money to the family, I said. He left it to me. He was not in his right mind at the end. That sentence landed like a stone. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I picked up the envelope, put it in my bag, and said I needed to use the bathroom. I did not use the bathroom. I stood in the hallway outside the bathroom door, and I photographed every page of that document on my phone. Then I texted my best friend Simone, who is a paralegal, and I sent her all 6 photographs. Her reply came in 40 seconds. Do not sign anything. Call me when you leave. I went back to the table, and I told my mother I would think about it. She said, "There is nothing to think about. This is family." I said, "I understand," and I asked if there was any dessert. I called Simone from my car in the driveway with the engine running. "That document is not enforceable," she said immediately. "It's a gift transfer form. It's not even properly formatted for Ontario. Where did she get this?" "I think she printed it from the internet." "Okay." A pause. "Okay. So she's not working with a lawyer. That's good. That means she doesn't actually know what she's doing legally. She's operating on the assumption that family pressure is the same as legal obligation. That has always been her operating assumption. What's the inheritance situation? Is it cleared through probate already?" 2 weeks ago. "It's sitting in a TFSA in my name." "Then there is nothing she can do," Simone said. "She cannot force you to sign anything. She cannot challenge the will on cognitive incapacity grounds without medical evidence. And even then, that process takes years and costs money she doesn't sound like she has." "She doesn't," I said, "but she co-signed one of Derek's loans. $12,000. Simone was quiet for a moment. How do you know that? I don't yet, I said. But I'm going to find out. Can you send me a list of what would be publicly searchable if someone had judgment liens against them in Ontario? There was a longer pause. Then Simone said, You're not just going to give them the money, are you? I'm going to follow the numbers, I said, and see where they go. The thing about being a forensic accountant is that most people vastly underestimate what is publicly available if you know where to look. Court judgments in Ontario are searchable online. So are property records, corporate registrations, and if you know the right database's collections activity on personal guarantees. It took me 4 evenings at my kitchen table, with my laptop, a pot of tea, and a notepad to build the full picture. My brother Derek had 3 judgments against him in small claims court, totaling just under $19,000. He had not satisfied any of them. 2 of the creditors had registered writs of seizure and sale, which meant that if Derek ever acquired property, those creditors had first claim. My mother had co-signed a personal loan originated through a private lender, not a bank, not a credit union, a private lender, registered as a numbered company in Ontario. The loan was for $15,000, originated 18 months ago. My mother was listed as guarantor. Based on the payment schedule, and what I could infer from the lender's collections filing, Derek had made exactly 2 payments before stopping entirely. The outstanding balance with interest was now $14,211. My mother's name was on the hook for all of it. I sat back and looked at the numbers on my notepad. I thought about my grandfather, who drove a city bus for 31 years and put money into a savings account every single month, who ate sandwiches he packed himself and wore his winter coat for 7 years before replacing it, who looked at me across a kitchen table when I was 7 years old and said, "The numbers will always tell you the truth." The truth was this. My mother was not trying to help Derek. She was trying to save herself. $47,000 in total exposure, 12 to 14 of it directly attached to her own name, and a $240,000 inheritance, sitting 1 signature away from solving all of it. The truth was also this. She had done this before. I found it on a Tuesday evening, buried in a benefit statement I had requested from my grandfather's previous insurance provider as part of 8 years ago, my grandfather had been in a minor car accident, a rear-end collision in a Costco parking lot. He had filed a claim through his auto insurer. The settlement was $11,000 for vehicle repair and pain and suffering. That money had been deposited into a joint account he held with my mother, who had been listed as a trusted contact to help him manage his finances after a brief health scare. I could find no record of it ever being transferred to my grandfather's personal accounts. I sat with that for a long time. Then I opened a new page in my notepad, and I wrote at the top, Plan. My mother called me on a Thursday. I let it go to voicemail. She called again Friday morning. I let that go too. On Friday afternoon she texted, "We need to talk about grandfather's estate. There are things you don't understand about what he wanted." I texted back, "Can we meet Sunday? I have some documents I'd like to go over with you." She replied within 30 seconds. "Of course. Come for dinner. I'll make your favorite." She made my favorite when she wanted something. She always had. Lasagna, from a recipe my grandmother left behind, the one genuinely good thing that had come down through that side of the family, encoded in a handwritten card, kept in a wooden recipe box, that now sat in my kitchen, because my grandfather had given it to me specifically, 2 Christmases ago, in front of everyone. My mother had not forgiven him for that either. I arrived Sunday at 6. Derek was there, which I had expected. He was sitting at the table already, which told me the evening had been organized, not spontaneous. My father was in his chair. The lasagna was in the oven. He had a folder in my bag. The folder contained, in order, a printed copy of my grandfather's will with the relevant clauses highlighted, a summary of Derek's 3 court judgments, a printout of the private loan registration with my mother's name as guarantor, and a 1-page document I had prepared myself, in plain language, that explained exactly what had happened to my grandfather's $11,000 insurance settlement 8 years ago, and what the legal term for that was. I did not take the folder out of my bag. Not yet. We ate dinner. My mother talked about the weather, and about a neighbor's renovation project, and about how difficult the last few months had been for Derek, who was really turning things around. Derek ate 2 large portions and did not make eye contact with me. My father had a second glass of wine and watched us both like a man waiting for a storm to either pass or arrive. After dinner, my mother cleared the plates and then sat back down and folded her hands on the table. "Have you had a chance to think about what we discussed?" she said. "I have," I said. "And? I have some questions first," I said. I reached into my bag and I took out the folder. I want to be clear that I am not a cruel person. I did not enjoy what followed, but I had learned from my grandfather that when you find a discrepancy, You do not look away from it to spare someone's feelings. You follow it to the end. I placed the insurance settlement printout on the table first. My mother looked at it. Her expression did not change immediately. That told me she had known this moment was possible. She had just gambled that it would not come. This is grandfather's auto claim from 8 years ago, I said. $11,000, deposited to an account where you were listed as trusted contact. I can find no record of it being transferred to his personal spending account or his savings. Can you help me understand where it went? The silence lasted about 8 seconds. Derek was looking at the table. My father had put down his wine glass. That money went to household expenses, my mother said. Your grandfather asked me to manage it. He wasn't well. He was well enough to drive himself to the Costco where the accident happened, I said. He was well enough to file the claim himself. The incapacity notation on his file didn't begin until 3 years later. I paused. I've spoken to Patricia. Patricia was his notary. I had not yet spoken to Patricia about this specific matter. But my mother did not know that. My mother's jaw tightened. Almost imperceptibly. I don't know what you think you're implying. I'm not implying anything, I said. I'm asking about a discrepancy. I placed the second document on the table. I also have some questions about this. A private loan for $15,000, originated 18 months ago, with your name as guarantor. The current outstanding balance is $14,211. The lender has initiated collections. That's your financial exposure, not Derek's, my father said, quietly. How did you get that? It's a registered document, I said. It's a matter of public record. I looked at my mother. I want to understand the full picture before I make any decisions about grandfather's estate. My mother was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had changed. The dinner table warmth was completely gone. You come into this house, and you sit at my table, and you treat your family like suspects. I'm a forensic accountant, I said. This is how I understand situations. This is your brother. This is your family. We are asking you for help. You are asking me to sign over $240,000, I said. That's not a family favor. That's a significant legal and financial transaction. I would be negligent not to understand it completely. Derek said, without looking up. I'm sorry, okay? I know I messed up. But those guys are serious. It's not just money, it's they've called the house. They've driven past. That's frightening, I said. And I meant it. I'm sorry you're in that position. So you'll help, my mother said. I didn't say that, I said. I said I was sorry he's in that position. My mother stood up. After everything we've done for you, after everything this family has sacrificed. What has this family sacrificed? I asked, and my voice was very quiet. Because from where I'm sitting, the ledger looks somewhat one-directional. She told me to get out. I put the folder back in my bag. I thanked her for the lasagna. I hugged my father, who stood very still, and did not hug me back. I told Derek I hoped he would find a way through this. Then I drove home, and I sat in my parking garage for a long time before going upstairs. She called the next morning at 7:45. I was on my second coffee, and I had already been awake for an hour. I answered. I want to meet, she said. Without your father. And without Derek. Just us. All right, I said. The Tim Hortons on her Ontario. 10 o'clock. She was there when I arrived, which meant she had been early, which meant she was nervous. She had a large double-double, and her hands were wrapped around it. She looked smaller than she had at dinner. She looked like a woman who had not slept. I ordered a medium coffee and sat across from her. I need you to understand something, she said. I love your brother. I know he's made mistakes. But he is my child, the same as you are, and I cannot watch him be hurt. I know, I said. That's not in question. Then help him. I'm not going to sign over grandfather's inheritance, I said. That money was given to me specifically, and deliberately. Using it to pay off Derek's gambling debts would take about 6 months, and then we'd be back here again, because nothing about Derek's situation would have changed. You don't know that. I work with financial patterns professionally, I said, gently. I do, actually, know that. She was quiet. Then, what about my loan guarantee? If he defaults, I'm liable. I know, I said. That's a real problem, and I want to help you with it. Not by giving you $240,000, but by helping you negotiate the debt. I can look at the loan terms. There may be options. It's a private lender, not a bank. Those agreements sometimes have more flexibility than people realize. She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were wet, which was unusual. My mother was not a woman who cried easily. I took that money, she said. Your grandfather's insurance money. I know what that document says. I want you to know that I know. Okay, I said. We needed it. Your father's hours had been cut. Derek was in trouble even then. I told myself I would pay it back. Did you? No. I held my coffee with both hands. $11,000, I said. I'm going to add that to the calculation because it was mine. Eventually it was part of his estate. But I'm not going to report it. And I'm not going to use it as leverage. I just needed you to say it out loud. She wiped the corner of her eye with the sleeve of her coat. What I am going to do, I said, is this. I'm going to speak to a debt resolution specialist I know, and I'm going to get you a consultation at no cost to you. I'm going to help you understand your exposure on that loan guarantee, and what your actual options are. That is what I can do. And Derek? Derek is a grown man, I said. The kindest thing I can do for Derek is not rescue him from consequences one more time. She looked like she wanted to argue. She didn't. Grandfather left me that money, I said. Because he watched, for 30 years, what happened in that house. He watched where the resources went. He watched who was drained and who was refilled. I paused. He wanted me to have a different life than the one that was being prepared for me. I'm going to honor that. We sat in the Tim Hortons for another 20 minutes. We talked about small things. The neighbor's renovation. The weather. Before she left, she put her hand briefly over mine on the table. She didn't say she was sorry, but she didn't ask me to sign anything either. The private lender, as it turned out, was operating with a registration issue that a good paralegal Simone specifically identified within 40 minutes of reviewing the documents. The loan agreement had a defect in the guarantor clause that made my mother's personal liability legally questionable. It did not disappear entirely, but it became negotiable. The lender, faced with the choice between a drawn-out dispute and a reduced settlement, accepted $6,200 from my mother's existing savings to close the file. Derek's other debts were his alone. The writs would sit on his record until he dealt with them. That was his problem to solve. My grandfather's $240,000 stayed in the TFSA in my name. 6 months later, I used a portion of it as a down payment on a one-bedroom condo in Hamilton, in a neighborhood that was still affordable, on a street with a coffee shop I liked, and a library 2 blocks away. I put a recipe box on the kitchen counter, the one with my grandmother's lasagna card inside it, the one my grandfather had given me specifically, in front of everyone, because he knew exactly what he was doing and he wanted me to have something that was mine. The numbers, in the end, had told me exactly the truth. I followed them all the way to the end, the way he taught me, and what I found there was not revenge, not a dramatic signing of papers, not a confrontation worth filming. What I found was just mine, quietly, completely, unambiguously mine. That, I have come to understand, is what he always meant to give me.